Another big week in college football. I want to review all the big games, at least what I thought were the most interesting games of the week. We're going to start off with the game of the week that everybody was excited for, Texas Alabama. 34-24, Texas gets a huge win. As you can already see, they've updated with the rankings. Texas moving, basically flip-flopping with Alabama. Alabama drops to 10, Texas moves up to 4, as Texas really took it to Alabama. Now, I think it's interesting to note that Alabama might have a quarterback problem. They haven't had a quarterback problem in a long time, but they might have one here. Jalen Milroe did not look particularly good. I still threw for 255 yards, but that completion percentage, not very good. And the 2 interceptions, big problem there. Quinn Ewers looked much better. Silenced some of the critics. Quinn coming into this game, coming into this season with Arch Manning backing him up. How would he look? Are people going to be calling? Some people were already calling, hey, just get rid of this guy. We want Arch. I think silenced some of the critics, played a very solid game, took care of the ball, no turnovers, threw for 350 yards on that Alabama vaunted defense that I actually think played pretty well at the beginning, especially. I mean, if you look at the box score here, we're talking 13-6 at half. There was just not a lot of offense, but Alabama comes out in the second half, scores 10 points in the third quarter. Texas is slow. Coming out, you got some of those Saban adjustments, right? But what I think is interesting, and this is the sign of every team that I've ever seen in recent years beat Alabama. You got to take a punch. You got to take a punch. They are going to hit you in the face, and you got to say, okay, awesome, I'm going to keep fighting. I see this happen a lot with teams when they've played Alabama in recent years. They're hanging around. Maybe the first couple drives they get a touchdown, and they're hanging, it's kind of close, and then Alabama rips off, 2 quick scores. Whether, a field goal and a touchdown, or a couple quick touchdowns, or maybe there's a big turnover, or you make some stupid mistake and get a penalty on third down, and all of a sudden, the team just folds. Alabama just walks right over you and blows you out the rest of the game. But the sign of a team that will beat Alabama, or at least has the opportunity to beat Alabama, is they take the punch and they say, hey, we can keep playing with these guys. We're not giving up. We're not rolling over and letting them plow through us. Not letting Saban just run the ball and run us all over. We're going to keep fighting. And that punch came in the third quarter with this touchdown here. Jermaine Burton caught a deep bomb, kind of a bit of a blown coverage. Honestly, not really bad coverage, just a beautiful pass from Jalen Milroe. He does throw a big deep ball, and it's quite beautiful, and it worked out very well on this play. They score a touchdown, they take the lead, right? Texas is sitting here, they're like, yes, we keep holding them to field goals. We're up 13-9 still, and then boom, big touchdown. What does Texas do? Immediately drive right down the field and take the lead back. And that was really the end, right? You went touchdown, stop, another touchdown. Jalen Milroe again, another 40-yard pass, and you keep going, another 39-yard pass to score a touchdown there at the end. Honestly, I would say the game kind of felt over after this touchdown right here, to me. They took the punch from Alabama. Oh, here comes Alabama. They took the lead. Texas can't even score in the third quarter. The defense is playing well. They locked it in. They went right back and threw a punch back. And that was, I think, the end. Right when that happened, I looked at my dad as we were watching. I said, hey, that's the sign. Every time I've watched Alabama in one of these big games, if the team takes a punch and fights back, they have a chance of winning. They don't necessarily always win, but there's a good chance that they can win. And they did. They then scored again, walked in. Now, Alabama, this is still a close game, right? I wouldn't completely bail on Alabama at this point. They're a very good team, very capable team. Jalen Milroe throws a good deep ball, but Beyond that, they got an offensive problem. I think it is interesting. I know as a Notre Dame fan, I'm very familiar with Tommy Rees as an offensive coordinator, as a quarterback coach. And one of our complaints as Notre Dame fans has been for years, as Tommy has been the quarterback's coach and then became the offensive coordinator and the quarterback's coach, he doesn't seem to be able to develop quarterbacks very well. Now, Jalen Milroe last season did not look great, right? In the few times he got to play, there was this big battle in the offseason between Milroe and Buckner, former Notre Dame quarterback. Definitely seeing what he can do. It's not great, but there's this battle there, and Milroe gets the start, plays okay in game 1, but against very, very inferior competition. Then he plays somebody big, plays Texas, and really struggled, right? He has 255 yards passing. 100 of that is coming on 2 pass plays. So it wasn't like he was completing a lot of passes and really driving down or sustaining drives. Their touchdowns came on those deep bombs, which is not necessarily super sustainable. Like, you can get a couple of those. He has great wide receivers out there, super fast. They're going to blow 1 or 2 of those a game, probably. But that's not enough to beat the good teams. Yes, against inferior competition like last week, those guys are just going to beat the DBs every time and you just throw it, right? But this week, 14 for 27, it's not a great completion percentage and 2 picks that were pretty bad. They weren't good picks. They weren't, it's not really his fault. They weren't deep ball jump balls. They were pretty bad picks. I think they have a quarterback problem. I think they have an offense problem. I am not a big Tommy Rees fan. I don't think he developed his quarterbacks well at Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame's best quarterbacking year under Tommy Rees was probably Jack Cohn, who was a Wisconsin transfer and just came in for the 1 year. He had Ian Book for many years, and Ian Book is the winningest quarterback in ND history. But the complaint was that every single year, Book did not take the leap to the next year. He didn't get better, didn't improve. He kind of was the same quarterback year after year. Won a lot of games, had a lot of success, but he never took it to that next elite quarterback level. And that's the unfortunate part, right? I'm seeing the same thing happen now with Alabama. Jalen Milroe. What was the complaint last season and in camp? Interception problems. Turns the ball over. What did he do against Texas? Turned the ball over. And I don't see a good progression of a quarterback, a good development of a quarterback. Buckner played at Notre Dame, came in as a highly touted guy, cannot throw the ball. Just not his strong suit. He's a good runner, but at Notre Dame, he was not a good passer. And he even goes with Tommy to Alabama, and he can't beat out Jalen Milroe. And then Milroe has these problems. Now, I hope for these young men's sake, Milroe and Buckner, I would love to see them thrive and grow and develop as quarterbacks. I don't wish bad quarterback play on them. But I think it is interesting to note what has Notre Dame struggled with in the last few years. Quarterback development. Tommy Rees goes to Alabama. Now, you can't blame Tommy for, look, Notre Dame has a great quarterback. That's a transfer. So we'll find out, next year if the new coaching staff can develop a quarterback. But he goes to Alabama, and Alabama now starts to have the exact same problems. I think Tommy is actually a pretty decent offensive coordinator. I think he called a pretty reasonable game. Did some, unique things with formations and play design. His focus on running the ball, I think, is good for Alabama. Their big offensive line, run the ball. I think he called a decent game. But I just don't think he's developing a quarterback in the way that an offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach needs to do.